All right, welcome back everyone to Red Spotlight. I'm Alexis and I'm joined by David. Back to our Shield Recap Here series where we talk about literally all of the episodes one at a time. This is our 6th episode. So in the last previous 5 episodes, we've been discussing the first 5 episodes of the show that we love so much. And to be honest with you, we've been having a ball doing it. We've also have enjoyed greatly the interaction that it has elicited from people who have been watching along with us, and as we want to keep mentioning, we're very appreciative of that engagement, and we hope you continue to say your piece, as we say, and contribute your thoughts as we go on in the for the remainder of the however 130 some or actually 20 some episodes that remain on this show. You can catch these episodes as they drop on YouTube and on our podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you listen to podcasts, every single Friday. As a reminder, of course, if you want to have more content with me and David, we also have a couple of other shows. We got Turn to Page, we've got Quest Center, we also got Red Spotlight Entertainment Podcast, talking about books, games, and of course movies. We have a brand new big release in Planet of the Apes that came out recently, and we'll have a big episode on that, and also Challengers at some point. We want to discuss that as well. So if you'd like to hear some more content with us, come along for the ride. We've got plenty of things to. And then there's also a different series that David and I are cooking up in regards to one Steven Spielberg that we're hoping to dive into this summer. So we hope that you stay tuned. And that will be not its own show, but it'll be inside a Red Spotlight series, a continuous show that we've been discussing movies for almost 10 years now, if you can believe that, which is insane. So anyway, to start off this week, we are talking about an episode that we have been looking forward to, quite frankly, for weeks, and now we're here. It is a particular favorite of David and I's. We'll obviously get into it when we discuss the episode first and foremost. I do want to read some of the comments that we've received from both I Spy and Girl in the Flower Dress. Before I do that, David, how are you doing, and how have you been enjoying doing this series?
I'm all good, and yeah, like I said, every time, I'm loving these. I really like rewatching the show, and I really do like reading these comments that we get.
Yes, it's a really interesting insight, and it also helps us think about some things as well. So to begin with, from Shield Vids, they actually had a really interesting comment, and this is one of the assumptions, but it's nice to have an extended dialogue from some other people here in regards to the fact that the alien writing made its debut in I Spy, that alien writing which we now know. The genesis of that was because of the blood that they were extracting from this Kree corpse. We can only assume. No, actually, there's no assumption. I think at some point it was confirmed that those were one of the ancient Krees that were either here on Earth at the time of the Inhuman experiments, or they came down to kill the Inhumans once they changed their minds about them. One way or the other, this Kree was fixated on finding the ancient alien city, and so because this blood was used to create GH325, this drug that would regenerate cells and regenerate body tissue, basically, the genetic memories were implanting on the patients, and they were driving them insane. But before we're not even there at that point. At this point in our rewatch of the series, that writing that we on I Spy was just like, oh, and somebody paid a lot of money for it, and it was never really mentioned who, and the show never really doesn't really need to, but it never really confirmed one way or the other. The only other time that episode or the fact that the writing was seen there was mentioned, I think in one of the early episodes of season 2, when Ward is a prisoner at S.H.I.E.L.D. and Skye is the one that has to ask him questions. Ward does say that the first time he saw that writing was in Belarus, which is where they were in I Spy. So it's not as if the show forgot that, it was there. So yeah, it's really interesting stuff. But this person, Shield Viz, was saying his comment was Whitehall has been researching the writing for years. We know that Shield knows about the writing from when the patients started doing it. So it could have been scientists studying the symbols from one of those patients. That's interesting. I mean, because as far as the scientists at the guest house area, I mean, those people were never seen on the show. The facility blows up, so maybe it was one of those scientists on their own that was doing some research. Where my mind, and certainly his in a way as well, could look to Hydra or Hydra scientists, and definitely Whitehall. We also wouldn't put it past Malik. Gideon Malik is one of those Hydra heads who is, I think, the most silent on things. He likes to be the most hidden, and so he usually has his hands literally everywhere. So it could be him as well. So you never quite. Again, this is just a fun speculative thing about where it came from. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, or the show never, I guess, needed to address this. But it's just fun thinking about in this early era of the show, who in fact was behind this manhunt of this writing and how it was in that little area, that little room. Of course, we also have other Tahiti patients that are out in the wild. In season 2, we find out of the fact that there were plenty of other people who they had to go through the Tahiti protocol, have their memories rewritten, and that one of them actually remembered and began to hunt down the remaining group and literally carve them to death, because walls weren't enough anymore, so he had to go in something thicker. As disturbing as that sounds, and mutilistic as well. So interesting comment there. We thank you for the comment, of course. And if you have anything else to say, please come on and back and say what you like. We also have some comments from Silva Surfa. That's an interesting name.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things here. Greetings, fellow agents. Hello. Hope you two are doing well. This is my favorite episode of the first 4. I'm disappointed that we never see Aquila Amador again.
Mm-hmm.
As Pascal Armand was fantastic playing the character. She would have been perfect for season 6 too. Interesting. Maybe, I think maybe they're suggesting that, considering that season 6 had the team split up, there may have been an opening for that character to come back. Maybe. I think for me, I'm one of those that if she ever came back, cool.
Yeah.
Do I miss her? Not necessarily. I think what we got with her was fine. I don't think we get too much out of her. And she really, look, in this episode, yeah, she's a good agent. I think she was mainly just there to show a couple of things, how much Coulson has changed, how he had proteges before Skye, and it also kind of recontextualizes why Coulson really, really wants to make it work with Skye in a way he wasn't able to make it work with Aquila. Mm-hmm. So I think from a narrative standpoint, did we necessarily need her back? No. However, evidently there's a common criticism of season 6. Well, there's plenty of critiques from season 6, but one of them that I found from S.H.I.E.L.D. Fans is that there were characters introduced in that season that weren't quite as interesting. That's totally fair, but I'm not sure how the fit would have worked there, considering that her only connection was to Phil Coulson, and at that point he was dead in the show. And what was left of Phil Coulson in the remainder of the series was a different person with his face called Sarge, and then ultimately an LMD Chronicom with his face. So it's interesting. It's interesting to think about, but I don't know, David. I mean, I get why people like her. I just never really, I guess, was bothered that she never came back.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, I forget about her as the seasons went on and everything. But at the very least, maybe at the 100th episode would have been nice to see her again, just to show even more of how much she's changed or everything like that. Or maybe she could have been like, hey, you found your real like protege or something like that. You know, someone who can actually take your place. It would have been nice to see that comment.
It would have been nice. I do feel like a missed opportunity, only because I'm a big S.H.I.E.L.D. fan and I'd like to see all the little characters that have popped up throughout the show. I know in the last season they did a lot of like greatest hits and the cast was having so much fun, but wouldn't it have been cool to see a lot of the old like supporting cast from throughout the years and one last like not, and I'm not saying do the portal scene, but I'm just saying like it would have been really cool to have like a whole like big shield bang with all the other supporting like I'm thinking about Deathlock or Bobby and Hunter or even Koenig. I'm sure I'm missing a couple of other characters as well that, you know, come in and out of the show, but don't really stay throughout most of it. So, and look, the last season had a big enough cast already.
Yeah.
So I totally get it and everything. They were also a little bit ham-fisted by the idea that Ian DeCastricker had very limited amounts of time, and so if there's anybody who's going to get a spotlight in the last episode is Fitz, because he wasn't really in that season. And so if we have Fitz for a scene, let's have Fitz in the scene because the show is over. And I also get that money is tight. Yeah, that's just my thing. And I also do feel like they were trying to focus on the core, 7 cast members, I want to say. So I get it. But you know, it's kind of already baked in the cake, so.
Yeah.
But interesting comment there. Also saying, I love Melinda, one of my favorite characters. She is the best of S.H.I.E.L.D. Only Black Widow and Hawkeye as true peers. I think they're talking about us, you know, the level of skill set
For sure.
and ability. She doesn't fear any human, but knows her elite skills aren't a match for superpowers, like how only the Hulk could make Natasha shake in fear in the Avengers. Interesting parallel right there. But I think as we're seeing very subtly, this is what makes the show really special, what makes Jedmo really special, and the whole writing team and producers. At this point, we know for a fact they didn't have any of this mapped out all the way. They didn't know the specifics all the way of Bahrain, much less the fact that the little girl, or maybe they didn't even know it was a little girl, or the fact that the little girl that she killed wasn't Inhuman. At this point, they had no plans to do Inhumans. They didn't know Skye would eventually become Daisy Johnson. Like that's, but watching this again, you would know it. Yeah. Because you see the deliberate, like, you know, planting of the seeds.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I'm sure in the back of their minds, they just went, okay, she killed someone that she wished she wouldn't. Like, that's probably the most they thought about and just kind of kept that in the back of their minds. And then, luckily, everything leading up to them bringing in Inhumans, they went, that's why she killed the little girl. So,
yeah.
And it just works out. I mean, it's always best to kind of just keep that in mind. If with any kind of book, I remember, with any kind of story, long form story, for example, Percy Jackson books, I remember this one part in the second book where the main villain goes like, we got sponsors or something like that, you know, like people are actually like helping them out do the evil things that they need. Never thought about it, didn't care much about that comment. Later on in like 11th or 12th book, they finally like reveal what that was, who the sponsor was, and how like certain people are able to get like a lot of things, like a lot of that cost like a lot of money and everything, and they just made them into the villain. And you're kind of like, did you plan this from the beginning, or did you just come up with it on the spot? Like, what the hell? And so it's really cool when that happens on like any type of show or series.
Yeah. And I know that, you know, I feel like there's a comment that was made. I don't know. Well, I'll get to that. But toward the last couple of seasons of the show, a lot of the fans feel the need to just feel that the overall decision making of some things weren't as good as they used to be. I feel like every choice that Jedmo has made has been pretty deliberate. And that's not to say that every choice works. I don't think it does. I would say, though, more work than don't. By a good amount. And I know one of the things that people complain the most of, because it did feel kind of like was in season 7 when May becomes an empath. Okay? a lot of people had a lot of like, where did that come from? And hey, we were in that boat as well.
Yeah.
Because when it was happening, I'm like, what?
You brought it up, and I'm like, what are you talking about? But then they just hit me like, oh yeah, that did happen.
That's right. It did happen. It's like, what? It's pretty like, yeah. But here's the thing. As we got to the end of that season, it was pretty clear what was happening. In the overall arc, character of May, it's like, this is a person who, when we first meet, closed herself off from everybody, you know? And here she is at the end of the series, forced with this new ability to kind of reconcile with that. And she's kind of forced to feel everybody's feelings. Now she's at the point where she's got to feel, and she's got to work her way around that into... I think to me, it's not an allegory, but it's a metaphor for her kind of becoming herself again, finally allowing herself to feel. But even more, I think if that's not enough for you, think about it this way. Do we remember the abilities, the little inhuman girl... Was it Katya? I think Katya was the mother, but the little girl, do we remember what her powers were? The inhuman girl that May had to kill.
Oh, what her powers were. I think she just like mind controlled people. But
yes, but how? She would touch people and make them her own. You know, she would touch them and they would kind of bend to her will.
Yeah. And it was even like just
kind
of
she
like...
could...
Sorry, what?
No, but she couldn't control it. It drove her insane. And the more she kept touching, the more it got haywire. But isn't it amazing how at the end of this series, May basically got a version of that. She was an empath, and she didn't necessarily have to touch to feel, but it would be stronger when she did. And the way that I look at it is, okay, in the long history of the show, we know that Melinda May, from where she begins and where she ends, she had to kill an inhuman girl who one day, whose powers, in a way, she would come to have as her own, but in a way, not where it would drive her insane, but where she would open up and become a whole person again. And how did she become a whole person again? By using a similar set of abilities of the little girl who she unfortunately had to assassinate to save everybody. Well, I shouldn't say assassinate. She had to take out to save everybody else. And that's an element I never caught before. And don't get me wrong, they're not the same powers, but they're similar enough, and they both involve touch. And so now, forgive me if I'm not explaining myself correctly, but this occurred to me when I was rewatching that episode Melinda just a few days ago, and it all of a sudden just hit me that, you know, May ends up getting a version of these powers at the end of the show. Of the same inhuman girl I was just like, whoa. And that's something I never caught before. And maybe it's not something that was like intentional, but come on, it kind of feels like that's another one of those things where we all just missed it. And I missed it for sure. I never made that connection before, but now I'm just thinking about it. And I think right now isn't the space to have this. I'm just bringing it up because of the comment that we received. But when we get to that episode in season 2, we're going to be thinking about what happens to her in season 7.
Yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, just putting that out there. Really interesting. And again, that's not something that was always planned. It just kind of comes into fruition as you go. All right. Next, we have from Jack Dubs. This is the character with the umbrella icon. The Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. diss on the audio commentary was very much on my mind when I made the Marcus and McFeely comment last episode. Yeah, I'm sure it was, and I agree with you. It was very much a diss. It was so unnecessary, and I'm not really sure what they were hoping to achieve by making it. They weren't hoping to achieve anything. They were just piling on the bandwagon.
Mm-hmm.
Look, it is not easy being a Shield fan, even today in some circles, but especially in those moments, in those years, it was not easy being a fan of a show that everybody really enjoyed kicking down. If you're a Shield fan, and especially from those years, you get it, you know it, you were there. I don't have to say more. They were just bandwagoning, and that was it. And I think, to me, that's even more evidence that the culture at Marvel Studios was, fuck that show. I mean, we certainly, as fans of the show, felt that, and so that's just more evidence there. Other than to join in on the anti-Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. dogpile that Marvel Studios fanboys and certain YouTube pundits, yeah, a lot of the MCU, I don't know what, this is the strangest thing. Look, the MCU is a beautiful thing, and it's got a bunch of really fun and good movies in there. Some, I would even argue, great movies in there. And I am happy that the MCU came along. And I would also say, especially now that we're nearing the mid-2020s, it is far, far from perfect and far from great all of the time. And I feel that in the long history of the MCU that we're at this moment, it's pretty funny looking back on it, how, you know, not Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but MCU fanboys were like laughing at Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. When I think we've said it many times already, and I think you and I agree on this wholeheartedly, David, that throughout the long arc of this show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did most, if not everything, better than the MCU movies.
Mm-hmm. I was actually thinking of it recently, how they handled the Darkhold better than the MCU did. You know, I was just kind of like, okay, why couldn't you just take the idea of what the S.H.I.E.L.D. did with Wanda? Like, she wanted to bring her kids back, but the Darkhold in the show was able to show, I can't remember the LMD lady. Ada, like, how to become a living person, basically. I'm frozen again. Dang it. I'll fix it in a bit. But it showed her, like, how to become a living person, basically. And why couldn't something like that happen with Wanda, where she could have figured out a way to bring her kids to life or something? Mm-hmm. Or even Vision back to life too, because like, imagine, like, that could have been the Avengers level, like, threat right there, that she's gonna bring back the Infinity Stone somehow, and they're kind of like, and they have to decide, like, should we destroy them? Because, like, if they come back and everyone in the universe knows about this could cause chaos.
The answer is very simple. The people involved were not interested in that, or they weren't talented enough to recognize that possibility, or even sadder yet, the producer themselves at the studios just didn't occur to them to do that. That's why it's like, to me, it's like, yeah, okay, sure. It's funny how MCU fanboys just laugh at a show that did everything kind of better than the movies themselves. But okay, guess that's fine. And then, of course, the YouTube pundits. I'm pretty sure this person is referring to a lot of the people in the Collider and Screen Junkies space, especially in the 2010s when they came to prominence. Literally all of those people would never discuss the show, and the only time it would ever be brought up would be to laugh at it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then his comment had started on social media as a weird initiation ritual. You can't be a true Marvel fan unless you have denounced S.H.I.E.L.D. as hearsay or some... Yeah, I'm sure that's how it felt. It sticks in my craw because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did nothing but enhance the MC. Yeah, look, that's the thing. For those of us who watched S.H.I.E.L.D. in real time alongside all the movies, I think we got a better experience.
Oh, for sure.
Like, I think it enhanced S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. enhanced the movies, and it made us love the universe.
Mm-hmm.
I pity most people who felt that S.H.I.E.L.D. was just like something to not consider as something that is valid or something that would actually enhance the overall experience of the movies. But like, I think the show has the space to tackle a lot of what the movies were trying to say or having to discuss anyway with their characters, but just ultimately couldn't because there were movies and they were far more concerned with action set pieces and setting up the next thing. Whereas in the show, we have that conflict and we have the space to actually flesh it out. Like, I think to me, I'm in the middle of my rewatch. I'm watching season 3, and I think it's amazing how much better it did Civil War than Civil War. And Civil War in the movies is, yes, the Sokovia Accords empowered people. And I think to me, when I watched Captain America Civil War, in the back of my mind, I had been watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. season 3. And what happens in season 3? The Inhumans become public knowledge because there are all these transformations that are happening all over the place. And in the show, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I mean, the president has to make up a whole new organization, the ATCU, to deal with it. And then after that, after Rosalind is assassinated, then they have to go... there's like a national symposium where all the world leaders are coming together. There was even an episode where the head of Hydra was attempting to stage a coup to assassinate the Russian prime minister to set up a home for Inhumans just so he could sacrifice them to Hive. I say that not as if like that's like talking about it. I'm saying that those are the plot points. But underneath it, you're having all of these discussions of what it means to have, you know, a group of powered people come up left and right, and how S.H.I.E.L.D. is overwhelmed by it, and how everyone is overwhelmed by it. We begin the season with Joey Gutierrez, who is just this person that ends up getting into these powers. We have these discussions left and right about what, you know, should there be an inhuman cure? Can we develop one? Should people have a choice? Meanwhile, Daisy is so gung-ho about like, hey, this is an awakening. Like, these people are my people. They should... Yeah, and she's kind of like putting her story on everybody else's, thinking that that's how it's going to work out for everybody. But season 3 has a really good, it has the space to discuss these things, you know, and actually like build on those ideas.
Yeah.
And in the MCU,
especially the shows.
Well, yeah, in the shows, but in the movies, like what becomes of the Sokovia Accords? They were a dumb idea to begin with, but it was one that was worth exploring for sure. But where did the movies take it? They just took it where it was it ended up being a feud between Cap and with Iron Man, right? And then in the subsequent films, there was no further discussion. And what kept happening is they kept getting in the way to the point where it was just kind of like comical that they were still a thing when they have proven time and time again to hinder everything. And how do we know that they were overturned? Some throwaway episode in She-Hulk. Oh yeah, the Sokovia Accords were overturned.
Yeah. Yeah, it was annoying, especially when we watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Every episode we were like, "What's going on with the Sokovia Accords?" Like, I don't.
That show especially should have.
It should have. Like, it's so weird too because like you think you want to handle it in the show, so you don't really have to. Because you mentioning the movies how they handle it. I don't mind it much if they kind of like either ignore it or not or something like that. Just because with the movie you only have 2 hours to tell like a character arc for this person, and maybe it just probably doesn't need to involve the Sokovia Accords or anything like that. So I'm okay with them ignoring it for the movies.
Right.
The show though, you have plenty of time to bring that stuff up. You can make an episode about it and then move on from it. Like, I don't.
And it's one of those situations where S.H.I.E.L.D. did it first and did it better, right?
Yeah.
That's how fans feel because, S.H.I.E.L.D. was also the place where they were fleshing out the Sokovia Accords, weren't they? They already had a character that would perfectly come in here and impose that on Coulson. Glenn Talbot, of course. And then by the time that season 4 begins, S.H.I.E.L.D. is re-legitimized. And there's constant conversation about how S.H.I.E.L.D. itself was changed because of the Sokovia Accords. That was the time when they had Jeffrey Mace as the director. He was a fake Inhuman, only because Coulson was so insistent that an Inhuman should be the face of S.H.I.E.L.D., but they couldn't come up with one, and so But yeah, in the first arc especially, the Sokovia Accords are discussed quite frequently. And again, that is a reminder that S.H.I.E.L.D. did the MCU movies a lot of favor because it did the best it could to flesh out these concepts time and time again where the movies just wouldn't go. You know, as far as the MCU movies, Hydra is a big thing in The Winter Soldier, and that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's mentioned again in... I mean, Strucker is in Age of Ultron. They take him out. They mention Hydra in Ant-Man when Corey Stoll was like, here are some representatives of Hydra. They're not what they were. That's a direct quote from Corey Stoll in Ant-Man. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so it's like, the show, to me, always came to the rescue in that department and ultimately made the MCU universe a lot better. And it's a reminder of how infuriating it is that Kevin Feige and those people at Marvel did not know what they had. Again, like, I shouldn't be as bitter because I think it ended up being a better show without him being so involved in it.
Mm.
But that isn't to say they couldn't have, like, they could have had so much more of what was going on in the movies, like faces pop on in, but they didn't want to do that. Like,
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay, so continuing on with
Wait.
I'm sorry, no, you go ahead.
Sorry. And then also, like, sorry, you mentioning how, like, the show could have been more had they, like, been a little bit involved, had they, like, had a bit more stuff to do. And that's basically what they're doing now with the shows. Where it's just like, let's just pile on all these characters and blah blah blah. Like, let's just do whatever we can. And it's like, you could have done that with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from the beginning. And
if you didn't want to, then you can do an Agents of S.W.O.R.D. TV show and then do it that way instead.
But bring the original writers.
Yeah. Man. A lot of really missed opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Is what it is. I'm going to continue on with Jack Dubs' comments from the next video from Girl in the Flower Dress. He says, we may agree and disagree on some stuff, and we'll continue to do so. I'm sure we will. And that's great. It's boring when we all have the same opinion, you know? It's like, and I think it's great. With different opinions, make the world go round. As long as you keep doing these vids, let me see here. Keep doing these videos, but I'm in complete agreement on one thing mentioned in the start of this video. Season 5, Episode 1, Orientation, is one of this show's best ever episodes. Yeah. Yes, it is. And look, you gotta remember that, man, when Season 5 came back, especially this to me was my most anticipated season premiere. To me, this was the peak of, like, me, like, just, like, being S.H.I.E.L.D. everything. And understand that this season premiere was delayed. You know, it usually comes back September. They delayed this to, I think, November. November or December. You know why? Oh, because we had to go through 8 weeks of Inhumans. And so, to me, it was like, Inhumans, one of the worst things ever made, certainly from Marvel's perspective. And then S.H.I.E.L.D. comes back and shows you how it's done with one of the best episodes they ever did. And so I'm happy we agree on that. That to me that one is not mentioned as often in the top 10. That being said, there may be 10 better episodes than that. I'm sure there are, but still, it just reminds you, like, it's not an easy list to come up with of 10 favorite episodes of the whole show, especially when I would say that 95% of the show is great. So it's like, here's that. And then the rest of the comments come from Silva Surfa again. Greetings, fellow agents. Hope this finds you well. Look forward to the deep dive this week as always. I have to mention, if I find it funny you mention Game of Thrones in regards to quality television, because I find Game of Thrones to be overrated trash personally. Me being a hardcore Conan the Barbarian fan might play into that hot take as well. That is certainly a hot take.
Yeah.
One that I don't agree with in the slightest. But again, we just said... different opinions make the world go around.
Yeah.
I personally feel the last season, I don't think the last season is complete trash. I think the decisions that were made were very haphazard and hastily made, which ended up resulting in a finale that, again, wasn't what people wanted. But I would say that seasons 1 through 6 of Game of Thrones...
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think the show was...
It's great. It's a great show, ultimately, you know? I can't sit here and lie, oh yeah, it's overrated. I respect that you find it overrated, and you are not alone for sure. But back in 2017, when I was binging Game of Thrones in anticipation for season 7, I was like, wow, this is so good.
Yeah.
And most of it is really, really good. So,
No, for
The
sure.
Winds of Winter? Are you kidding me? The Winds of Winter? Cersei blowing up those people to Kingdom Come? Are you telling me you haven't fantasized about doing that to especially the MCU fanboys who have denounced this show for all these years and years? Come on. I know that's my own psyche leaking out, but come on, that's one of the best moments of television ever. Oh man. Sorry. Just Game of Thrones can be especially amazing television. And to be fair though, look, Game of Thrones did suck the oxygen out of the room when it came to genre storytelling. On television, it was winning all those Emmys. There was one year S.H.I.E.L.D. did get an Emmy nomination for VFX and lost to Game of Thrones. But it's not fair because they're not in the same league in terms of budget.
Yeah.
It's just like Game of Thrones was getting so much more money put into it, where it was like a completely transportative experience. S.H.I.E.L.D., I think, is able to flourish in spite of the fact, or despite the fact, that it was a network television show. It's how it is. But Mark Kolpak definitely should have gotten an Emmy, because what he was able... I would say it's even more impressive what his team were able to accomplish. I think with one of the other VFX studios, like FX Studios, or FS, I forget what the name of the VFX studio that they work with a lot for S.H.I.E.L.D., but what they were able to accomplish with the tiny budget they received should have been something that, in my opinion, is worth being recognized. But then also, S.H.I.E.L.D., something else S.H.I.E.L.D. related, did win an Emmy. Remember, Natalia Cordova-Buckley, who plays Yo-Yo Elena Rodriguez on this show, starred in a 6-episode mini series on YouTube called Slingshot. It was about Yo-Yo, where all the moments that Yo-Yo wasn't seen in a lot of the... There were a lot of spots where she was missing in season 4, and from season 3 to season 4, and Slingshot is basically bringing that, you know, it's like a mini Yo-Yo series. That won an Emmy.
That's cool.
So there's that. Something Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. related did win an Emmy. But hey, I respect the hot take.
Yeah.
I definitely have hot takes myself. I think Joker is absolute trash. I hate that movie. And I'd be happy to get into that. And I have got into that. If you actually want to hear what my thoughts are on that, guess what? There's like a 5-year-old podcast somewhere on this feed where we do a review of Joker. And you'll get my feelings about that as well if you so care to. But David doesn't feel the same way. He likes the movie. I
love the movie.
I despise Joker with all my heart. And I especially hate the fact that it got 11 Oscar nominations. So, hey, different opinions make the world go around, that's for sure. Anyway, he continues, or they continue. Yes, the great Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan civil wars, believe me. Every season has them. Season 1 has the Sky Ward shippers who never let that go. Season 2 has the fans who hate the real S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 3 has fans like me who don't like Lincoln or the wasted setup for Marvel's Most Wanted. Ooh, I wanna get into all that, but oh man, oh my god, Lincoln is. That's definitely true. That was divisive. Season 4 has the moment Daisy doesn't push Mac through the portal in the framework. That one I thought was a bit ridiculous, but okay.
People were mad about
that? Yeah, they were. And that always causes debates. They were. I know, right? That's why I think as the seasons go, to me, the reasons that people in the fandom have to be upset at what's happening on the show become less and less coherent and less understandable, personally. Season 5 has the most conflict amongst fans about everything. People hated Deke. From Deke, and I do not understand that. From Deke, people had a problem with. So he's saying from Deke to Fitz to Ruby. Fitz, I guess I can understand. Ruby, I totally understand. You know.
Yeah.
That's the one where it's like I get you. Season 6 had the Yo-Yo / Keller relationship. Keller was a character that he was just there to die. Let's be real. That was you don't even know who that person is. I know. He was in the first 3 or 4 episodes of season 6. This is the character, and that's a whole other thing. Remember, between 5 and 6. Well, keep in mind that I defended this at the time that Yo-Yo and Mac kind of broke up because by the time that season 5 ended, they were not in a good place. So much shit happened, and I totally get them wanting to, spend some time apart. And then also Mac, I totally get him throwing himself into the job for 2 reasons: grieving Coulson, then also wanting to do the best job he can, to the point where he kind of iced Yo-Yo out. So Yo-Yo found, a different S.H.I.E.L.D. agent by the name of Keller. But again, I forgive you for not remembering who he was, because he was not even there for I don't even think 5 or so episodes. He genuinely did not make an impact, and then he ended up being killed by a Shrike, very early on. So that's a whole different situation. But this person was saying that was forced in his opinion. And I'm not going to argue with you. I feel that's entirely fair to feel that it was forced, especially because of how quickly they killed him off. I personally didn't find it to be that big of a thing where I'm like, whoa, the writing really went downhill. But if you feel that way, I totally get you. And season 7 has a few moments as well. We will surely address each. Yeah, and you know what? This person's right. Silver Surfer, you're right. Every season has things that happen that people are just the knives are out for it. That's interesting. That's really, really interesting. I think season 1 has the least, it looks like. I guess the most would be the Sky and Ward shippers. Did I ship Sky and Ward? I think when I was watching the show for the first time, I was I'm sure it was obvious they were angling for those two to be a couple, and I wasn't against it, but I wasn't that really passionate about it.
Same.
I think in this episode, we're going to see some moments where we're going to begin to understand that perhaps there's more at play between Fitz and Simmons than maybe just a brother-sister relationship. Because I will fully tell you that it wasn't until this episode where I'm is there something more here? That being said, Fitzsimmons haven't gotten too much to do in the show until now. That we're about to begin this episode. So I think that's when we begin to get the ball rolling here. And then finally, before we get started, again by Silver Surfer, I can't read words. Have to mention how nice it is to see you both mention the sisterhood of Sky and Gemma. That's why season 7's Cora bothers me so much. I wasn't fond of that character at all, and she felt unnecessary to me since Gemma and Sky are sisters already. Character. Cora's not a character because the show spends no time caring about her. she's really like a lot of these characters sometimes can just be plot devices.
Yeah.
The only reason Korra is there is for, as a thematic stand-in for, Daisy's journey throughout the whole show. But she also is there to remind her she already had a sister, and her name is Gemma Simmons, as she says herself in the show. And again, by the time that Korra is introduced, it was so late in season 7 that she wasn't going to be a character in her own right.
Yeah.
Maybe she could have. Also, people had issues with the actress herself, perhaps not giving that great of a performance. That's entirely fair if you feel that way as well. I would say, to me, the biggest thing in season 7 that was really kind of complicated for me to feel about was Nathaniel Malik, because I think the actor was really trying to go for something, and I think in some moments he succeeded. But I don't think, if there's ever a place where I felt perhaps the writers did not spend enough time with, is fleshing out who the main villain ended up being in that season. I don't think Sybil, and I don't even think Malik, the last Malik, are anywhere near the best villainy stuff that we gotten on this show. I do think maybe they were thinking at one moment to bring back Brett Dalton as Ward, and that would have, but I think maybe they felt like that's one too many times going back to the well. And I think that's kind of what kept them from even calling up Brett Dalton. Was like, well, we already did this. We don't want to go back to that. And so all the while they were being criticized for bringing Phil Coulson or bringing Clark Gregg back in the first place after having killing him off. So it's like, I really do feel that they were in a no-win situation. That being said, it was fine. It wasn't bad, but again, that's season 7 talk. And I think with Korra, that's perfectly understandable why she would bother you when there was already a sisterhood. But I think the existence of Korra reinforces that the main thing with her even being there is to like, hey, you kind of don't matter.
Yeah.
Like Gemma's been here the whole time. That's her real sister. So that, I think they made it. And especially with how she was not necessarily a foil, but getting Korra to come to the good side would ultimately be like Daisy's equivalent to, passing the trials to become a Jedi Knight, if you will. Like she was finally able to cross that threshold and do the thing that Coulson had been trying to show her how to do throughout the whole of the series. So in that respect, it works, but I totally get not being too fond of her personally. I ain't too fond of her either. So there's that. But isn't it funny how of all the swings, and hey, I would also say season 7 has some debate, although not too much, about how good or not Sousa, that's his name, right? Sousa works in that season. And especially putting him up with Daisy as a couple. I think that's wild how that ended up working. Yeah. Especially because the time wasn't there to really, but somehow they were able to do it, and I love it. Looking back on it, that's something that worked for me, but I totally get that being something that wasn't going to work for a lot of people. But again, that's way later in the series. Yeah. So with that, was there any thoughts you wanted to add, David?
Oh yeah, that was guys I mentioned too. Like Korra was whatever character for me too.
Yeah.
The only thing I remember though, she was obsessed with the Malik guy and everything. That's basically all I remember from her.
Yeah.
I was glad that her and Daisy, made up in the end, and she has like a biological family member with her by her side now and everything. But yeah, I agree with was it Silver Surfer basically.
Also, like Jack Dubs. Oh, yeah. I just saw this response in my rewatches of season 7. I just skipped past all the choruses.
Yeah, because honestly, that's really all I remember.
Is this the Jar Jar Binks of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. universe? Is this the most hated character? Look, there are some characters in the show that are just like, ugh. I mean, I think Korra and Ruby for sure. Although I feel for that because I don't want that to lead to any kind of misogyny. Although I don't think misogyny really is at play with people disliking their characters. I think mostly it's just they're not appealing personalities, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're hated. It's just people don't care about them, really. It's just they're kind of like they're just there, and then you can move on.
There's also Snow from season 7, although she was crazy and she was funny and she hooked up with Deke. She was the crazy bitch that worked with Sarge, that she loved to kill. You know, she always kept saying, "You'll be a butterfly." You know, that's one of the other ones too.
Mm-hmm. I think the most hated one is that one guy, the one that was like an alcoholic or something. Daisy's boyfriend. Lincoln, yes.
Lincoln, ooh, Lincoln. Yeah,
I think he might be the most hated one for sure. Yeah. The other two were just.
There are people who, but hey, people love Lincoln. I think Lincoln has a bigger following than either Ruby or Snow or Korra for sure. Because Korra, Snow, and Ruby are kind of like nothing in the pantheon of S.H.I.E.L.D. Lincoln serves a purpose, and there were people who definitely shipped Lincoln and Daisy. I did too in the beginning, and then as we got through, I think to me one of the things that the show mishandled, I think they made Lincoln a bit too unlikable toward the end.
Maybe.
But I'm in my current rewatch of season 3. I'll see how I feel about that when I'm done with it. But yeah, Lincoln is definitely one of the spots where people were like, huh.
Mm-hmm.
But people also got pissed at I mean, personally, I think you and I feel like what was it called? This is the episode where Fitz is his condition ends up reaching a breaking point, and the doctor kind of comes out and he's kind of like cutting into Daisy to take out the inhibitor that Cassius put into her.
I fucking love that episode.
People, huh?
I fucking love that episode. It's
amazing. It's amazing, but people felt at the time that they were bordering on character assassination for Fitz. And I'm like, but people felt strongly in that direction.
To me, that is like peak character moment for him. No, just because, like you mentioned, it's a breaking point for him, and every single thing that he has been through in this season, he finally had to like reach a moment.
And in the series, really,
it's just like, in this series, but like he's been through some mental shit, you know, especially going
season 4 was a disaster for him.
Yes, and I love that they brought it up though too, because it's like, you probably went through the worst of it all for everyone, and just like, and it's almost sad too in that moment, because like he had to go in a place that he probably like never thought he would ever go to, because he needed to save the world, you know, because that was the reason why he had to get the inhibitor, because like it's the only way to stop whatever that portal or energy
the fear dimension portal, whatever it was,
that was going on. Like he had to reach some part of his brain that he never even thought could be reached, basically. And I don't know, I love the way they handled it. So I love that moment.
Yeah, I remember that's one of the episodes where I remember where I was watching it for the first time, being like, whoa, this is good. Like, this is really good. So, but people got really upset at that too. So, like I said, there are like moments, excuse me, something fell. There are moments when that happens that we're like, we'll see. Anywho, without further ado, shall we go ahead and get actually started with this episode? This is going to be episode 6, which, before we even begin, I didn't listen to, but it's one of the few that has an audio commentary attached to it. Jamie Jirac of the Love in the Time of Hydra podcast, when they were doing their recap on this episode, she listened to the audio commentary, and the episode is actually pronounced fizzed. You know, it's spelled FZZT. I always just thought it was fitzed, but it's like fizzed because of the buzzing noise that we hear. You know, the vzz, fizzed. So that's how it's pronounced here.
You guys think we're kidding? Just remember to stick close to the campfire tonight, okay? Hey guys, did you hear that?
Yeah, just putting it out there. This is one of the episodes. This was the first episode that I think forever changed how I would feel about this show going forward. You know, remembering watching it for the first time, I was like, I cannot believe this episode made me feel the way about these characters, and it's only episode 6. I think, to me, as we said last time, episode 6 right here is a testament to how good the first 5 were in getting you to give a shit about who these characters are. And I think it was the moment I realized, damn it, they got me, and I'm gonna be here until the day this show stops airing. And thankfully, that would be a whole 7 years from that moment. So, but I will tell you, it was not without its trial and tribulations, because of the idea that very easily at one point this could have been yanked away from us through means of cancellation. And thankfully it wasn't. And again, we're still in that phase of the show where we're having these not cold opens, but we're opening the episodes with things that don't necessarily have anything, at least at first, to do with our cast of characters. We're getting openings that makes the show feel like it's the MCU meets the X-Files, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, to me, that was part of the appeal when watching the show, especially in the first season. But doesn't it fucking suck how when WandaVision came out, there were people who were like going on Twitter, like prominent individuals who were saying that the MCU should do a show that, is their versions of the X-Files. Bitch, they did that in 2013 and you didn't care. You were like laughing and ignoring it, and the audacity to make such a fucking idiotic statement like that and not realize that it already existed. And the whole lot of you were like, putting your noses up at it. It's like, ultimately, I'm glad the show evolved and ended up moving on from this. But whenever it did stuff like that, that was a perfectly enjoyable way to open the episode.
Yeah.
There was nothing wrong with it.
No, yeah, it's procedural, like always.
Yes,
it's not different from Supernatural, where you're seeing the 2 random people going about in some forest or house or whatever, and then they get attacked by the supernatural being and all that, and then it just goes back to the main characters. That's it. It's not that different.
You should know, I'm not a fan of getting poked.
Get the reference there? He's not a fan of getting poked. He got stabbed in the heart by the Chitauri staff.
Why did I take me a minute? What the heck? I got every other reference, but this will take me a minute.
Right. This is the first time I get that, yeah. I'm sure.
Well, you can officially tell your physical therapist that you're fit as their proverbial fiddle, especially for a man of your age.
Man of my age? That's something you say to an old person.
Is it?
Awkward. Yeah. I love the cute little lab coats that Simmons and Fitz wear in this season. Notice how that goes away in season 2, but I think the lab coats, and also how at moments they feel like they're oversized for them, only reinforce what kids they are still in this first season. And it also, marks how the tone is light and breezy, in this first season, as opposed when we get to season 2. Of course, costumes are a big part of anything, and how
I could shoot the legs off of
what the characters wear right now. Even something. Look at the outfit that Fitz has right now. That he doesn't wear that in season 2. So, and I'm sure these are one of the more subtle changes. But the costuming on this show is incredible because there are a lot of subtle hints that as you grow alongside the show, the characters themselves grow and things change. And they wear different styles. Mm-hmm. I mean, makeup and hairstyling. Sky Daisy literally has a different style of hair every single season of the show. Which I also felt in its own way, at least in my mind, was kind of like a mirroring of Scarlett Johansson's Natasha Romanoff, because in every single movie, I think, except for maybe one instance, in every single appearance, she wore her hair differently than the last time. Maybe that wasn't on purpose, but either way, I like that. Even it fits his hair right now in the season is like really curly, and then as we go through the series, it becomes less
I'm
so.
Agent
But again,
Grant
it's
Ward,
curly because he's
and
youthful here.
I could
And then as we age,
with my left
it begins
pinky.
to thin, unfortunately. Even how in this season, Simmons mostly has her hair in a ponytail.
Mm-hmm.
That goes away in season 2, but in season 2, when we, especially in the first, when Fitz imagines her, this is how he imagines her, with the ponytail look, you know, the youthful appearance of season 1. But she never wears that again, not ever again, but like mostly she wears her hair, I think, straight down.
Great.
For the most part.
Thanks.
So, I did not think I would spend 2 minutes talking about costumes and makeup and hairstyling, but here we are. But it's important, especially on a show like this.
For sure.
Where the electrostatic anomaly occurred.
What I don't understand is usually they're caused by
I
a
think to
massive
me-
electrical storm.
But there wasn't a storm within 1,000.
We are so used to seeing Phil in a suit because that's so synonymous with this character, right? In season 3, they change that up and they evolve his look.
Mm-hmm.
He hardly wears a suit in season 3. Now that I've noticed, I don't know if you noticed that,
No.
but like he hardly wears a suit in season 3.
What are you doing?
Because that's a subtle way of showing how the character has grown.
Mm-hmm.
Ward gets a cool like brown leather jacket during his last few episodes. I think season 2 or season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Stop me if you found going too long on the costumes. I'm just like trying
No,
to
it's,
remember.
I
all.
don't mind.
I
Go on.
love the bounty hunter look they gave Fitz in season 5. That was one of my favorite looks. that they
Yeah,
gave him.
for sure.
Well,
It's the solitary
judging by
hypothesis.
the horizontal
Perhaps
electrical
nanobatteries.
discharge.
Time. Let's try that again.
I love that
Any
bit.
idea what...
I literally, I'm gonna have to do that in my profession because I often have to settle a lot of fights and arguments and things that happen, and I get several people talking to me at the same time, and I literally have to like stop
Cauterized immediately.
and remind them I cannot hear more than one person talk at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna have to just do this from now on. Time. Just do it again. One person at a time because it's just insane. I'm sorry, I'm just venting about work right now, but like it's for real. It's ridiculous.
I skimmed all his posts, anyone linked to his pages, hoping for a crazy ex or superpowered stalker, and he's clean.
Everybody looks clean on their first go around.
Ward's right.
Pull it back, dude, okay? Pull that back.
on.
That was way, even the look and the way he said it and what he said, that was way too fierce. You see, Coulson? Come on.
Contacted the Rising Tide while we were on a mission. If she wants our trust back, she's got to earn it.
The background she ran on Cross is a good start.
Here's the thing. Coulson kind of becomes a little bitch himself later this season with what May does to him. But, hey, that's different. And I think it's more understand. I love this right here.
I'm already laughing.
Have a cookie.
That's one of the best. And I love how she comes out, kids clean, in a minute right here. Her interrogation.
Yeah.
I love that segue. But here's the thing. We know, with the benefit of hindsight, Ward has no fucking right to, like, ever call anybody else on betraying them. He's a fucking psychopath. And by the way, we did find out our answer. Ward did push his fucking brother into the well. It was not his older brother. So that answer was given in season 3 too as well. But also this little back and forth, love it. Again, it's one of those things that the show did early on. When they're just having a full-on back and forth argument and Coulson's just like,
What's going
hello?
on here?
Kid's clean.
It's happening again.
It's science, Fitz. I have to dissect something.
No, the satellite's picking up another electrostatic event, not 20 kilometers from here.
But also, we're talking over it, but I like how we begin the episode with, Fitz Simmons are definitely more her, like, siblings than the rest of them, and so it makes sense that they would be the first to forgive Skye for what happened. We're right on the heels of what happened last time with her, like, kind of betraying them. Coulson seems to be pretty cool with it. May is, like, mostly indifferent, but then again, she is toward most things at this point. Ward really is the only one giving her a hard time
Yeah.
right now, but
Scan the perimeter.
I do wonder if this is the same barn they use in a few episodes. with the girl that not the little girl, but the woman that they think has telekinesis powers, and May has to come and use her as bait. I don't know if you even know what I'm talking about.
No, but we'll get to it.
But yeah, I'm just like, when you rewatch the show a couple of times, again, this is a show that reused sets over and over again. But honestly, on a first watch, you don't notice that too much. Not that it's a big deal anyway.
Frank Whalen. He's a volunteer firefighter at the same station
one
house as
other
our first
thing
victim,
in
Adam
terms of
Cross.
production design I want to bring up here is the lighting, right? But the color that comes out of the screens. So right here in season 1, mostly, you just saw right now in the lab with Fitzsimmons and Sky, there was a green light coming out of the screens. In season 3 on Zephyr 1, the lighting is red that comes out of the screens, but then that's switched to blue when we go from season 4. So just pointing out some of the different colors that they use to light, which I like the variation. I like that it wasn't always the same for the whole of the show, and that they tried different things with lighting.
Past the threshold of its electrical capacity, causing it to discharge like an EMP.
You're assuming we're dealing with an external source. I'm saying it was something from inside him.
This is one of those instances where I don't know if there's ever a record how many times Fitz is correct over Simmons, or if Simmons is correct over Fitz, but one of those instances that show that Simmons was spot on about what was going on here. Again, she's biotech, so this is her specialty.
We were bored on the 3rd shift, so we decided to clean it.
This is one of those moments, again, that remind you of
Mr. Diaz, I'm putting the gun away now.
why Coulson is such a freaking lovable character. Because he recognizes here fully that Mr. Diaz is not going to survive these next few minutes. And what does he do? He does something that most wouldn't even attempt to do. He tries to make these last few moments be peaceful instead of them being filled with terror. And also this, I think it was quite moving, actually, when he talks about how him being where he's at, dying, and where he's going to go.
Is there anyone you want to talk to? Anything I can do?
Sir, you have to get out of there right now. He's got...
And that's always the elephant in the room, right? In our lives, we don't know what happens to us when we die. There are many organizations and institutions that believe that an afterlife exists, and if you believe to those, if you subscribe to those religions, and they would tell you, well, this way or that way. But in regards to this cinematic universe, for the longest time, there really wasn't anything in regards to an afterlife. But now with subsequent material, I think I'm thinking of Moon Knight, and then also thinking of Black Panther, and I'm thinking of Thor: Love and Thunder. In the MCU, there actually exists a lot of different afterlives.
Some say it was only for 8 seconds, but I know it was more than that. I know I wasn't here anymore.
Where people go after they die. So, you know, Coulson, as he kind of gets more pessimistic about everything as he grows through the seasons. But I know that when I first watched this, I wasn't sure myself if Coulson was just making up a story to make him feel better, or maybe he is speaking about a plane, an astral plane that he's been through.
It's beautiful.
That he was, again, it's hard to tell. He was dead for days, to be fair. So I assume he had to be at a plane, and then they brought him back or whatever. And I don't even know. He just said that the way he said it was beautiful. Itself is beautiful to see how he was able to he can't change the fact that this person is going to die, but he could certainly change him coming to peace. Going out in a moment of peace is far preferable than going out in a moment of terror and fear. And the way that, look at how May is looking at him right now, because she heard the conversation. I'm not sure if the others did, but she very much heard what he was saying. And again, she's there for her friend, you know? And I think in her mind, she's having some thoughts about his psyche. How is he processing the fact that he's alive after that he was dead? And again, I know that what comes to light looks bad, that she didn't tell him about any of these things. But she legitimately is wondering, but that's why she's there, because her mission is to check him. Her mission is to study him. And for her to be on the lookout for any signs of denigration.
You want to talk about your physical?
Nothing to tell. My physical therapist requested it. He's updating his files or something.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We didn't even mention. He called for a physical out of nowhere. So you see, like, little by little, they are moving along these story beats. In hindsight. We just didn't know it at the time.
The virus can move from person to person.
Exactly. And that's the most exciting part, how it spreads. Not through the air or through...
When this happened, I was like, no! What are you doing? And again, we're at a point in the show where I'm like, I'm not sure if I ever fully believe, no, they're not going to kill her. But they get pretty close. The next few moments that we're about to see, I was like, they're not going to do this. Are they? And then you have to understand, in the back of my mind, as a person who's watching this in real time, one of the constant criticisms of the show is, why do we have two characters who serve the same purpose and function? By the way, screen grab behind me. But you're like, they're not going to kill one of them, are you? To like get rid of that criticism. I don't know if people were thinking that in real time while watching this. But again, here's where we get to see, I think to me, these two belong together.
Yeah.
Even if at this moment we're not thinking about it in terms of romantic ways, they themselves are not thinking about it romantically. But I think one thing as sure as anything is that Fitzsimmons belong together. And this is where we see it come, at least where it comes from first.
Also, I want to mention, I think this might be the best acting we've seen of Coulson, or what's his name? Coulson?
Clark Gregg
so far, I think, in all the episodes. Just because I really did love that moment where he's walking away from the fire station and he's just kind of like has this dead look on his face and everything. And also, I love the moment though where he sees that she's infected and he just walks away like, sorry. Closes it and everything. This might be the best acting we've seen.
Yeah, no, I think for sure. I think this episode specifically is the best acted episode so far of the show. What we're about to see in a few moments with Ian DeCastiger, Elizabeth Enstridge, and yeah.
Come on now. Come on.
There's a moment that comes up where, not here, but later on, where it's the final time and Skye is saying, I can't breathe. That's how I feel right now just watching this play out. It's like, oh my God. So I definitely do feel the tension here for sure.
You need to dump it. Do you copy me, Coulson? These orders are coming from up top.
I'm sorry, bad connection. Didn't get that last part.
This ultimately really comes back to bite Coulson. I think as viewers of the show, we love the fact that he's like, when it comes to decisions that he feels what Fury says to the World Council, I think in the Avengers, given the fact that it's a stupid ass decision, I've elected to ignore it. Coulson really has a lot of that attitude, especially in this first few episodes, right? But every time he does that, a lot of the other S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who knew him from before take special note of that, so much so that this agent that we just saw, Felix, comes to Victoria Hand with his suspicions that Coulson's a little bit sus in that department, right? Like suspicious, I mean. And that Victoria Hand herself buys into that she immediately assumes Coulson is Hydra when Hydra reveals themselves and sends missiles in his direction.
That's not even how I sound, and you were just afraid of going into the field. And don't you dare act like these last months have been the highlight of your entire pasty life.
Pasty? Oh, really?
This is a great scene here. This is a moment that, look, every scene these two have together when they're fighting is like the best.
PSYOPs,
like
this
right here.
plane. You've been beside me the whole damn time.
And the realization hits on both of their faces, like, and especially his. The whole time I've known you, you can't go. We have to fix this. We have to remind ourselves, especially meaningful of the fact that Fitzsimmons is not based in like reality, but the relationship and the love that they have for each other throughout the show comes from the very creators of this series. Jed Whedon and Marissa Tancharoen, and I think that's like fucking awesome and really special. And then also just goes to show you that you write what you know, and you bring a lot of who you are to what you're doing, which is actually one of the few MCU properties that's given the chance to do that, where the writers and directors are able to bring who they are as people and make
like
that
Typhoid Mary.
the main part
Well, no,
of
wait.
the
You
series.
don't really think that... Okay.
And in so many of the MCU, I love this bit where Fitz is like, what?
She?
Grossed out that they could be women. Some of the Shatari soldiers. That was a funny bit there. And then even this right here.
Isn't that...
Fitz!
We've seen Fitz time and time again risk his personal life to save Gemma, even for the slightest chance. The next time he does something like this, that's just like, what are you doing? Is in the beginning of season 3, when he fucking has had enough, takes an axe to the little containment area and starts going berserk and yelling at the monolith. Remember the monolith that took Simmons away to the planet Mavis? So without this is showing, not telling, how much he loves her. And I think this is the episode where even he realized it himself. Like, I don't think he ever thought into words. Like, he liked her as a friend, but I'm thinking this is the moment where he's realizing, uh-oh, maybe I like her more than a friend. And Simmons, to her credit, never thought of him as anything more. She says as much in season 2, but the more time she thinks on it in season 2, the more she realizes maybe it does make sense. And then that's when she asks him if he's ready for another chance. Then he asks her to dinner, and then wouldn't you know it, at the moment where things finally seem right, she gets whisked away to another planet.
I can't breathe.
God, I don't know, the makeup or on Elizabeth right now, with how pale she's looking, how sickly she's becoming, and then also her own acting abilities, like, oh man. This scene right now, when she kind of accepts her fate.
I know the protocol in these circumstances. But could you please tell my dad first?
Let's go.
Very slow down version of the main theme.
You hear that?
Yeah.
You hear that? It's actually this motif. Da, 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 that's we first heard that when the rocket.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Comes up. That's the one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, and it was also used, I think, with Daisy, with Sky and Coulson. So it's not necessarily like a Fitzsimmons theme, but it's really a theme for how the team feels about each other. I think maybe even for bonding moments, it can be used for all those instances.
Someone's lowering the cargo hold ramp.
Words like, yes, I get a chance to prove my worth. And then also to fool these idiots into thinking I'm on their team. Which ultimately, he confesses later on in the season to Reyna. It's like he saw an opportunity to seem like a hero that's why he goes to the rescue.
That's intense. I love it.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Fitz and Simmons do get the opportunity later on in the show to together skydive on their own mission from a Quinjet.
The anti-serum worked! But she jumped!
I also do love this bit too, because on my rewatch, I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, you actually like tried to sacrifice yourself for these people. And after, especially like knowing like what he does later on, I'm like, damn, I could see why they actually believed it.
Yeah.
After all, I'm Agent Grant Ward. I just jumped out of a plane without a parachute on.
That just shows that he was eavesdropping. Which, of course, he would do, right? Because he's spying on them and reporting on them, too. So, I love this right here.
Oh!
And it works with that comment that we just talked about.
Yeah.
They're both sisters.
Yeah. Again, just 5 episodes and we're already here. 6 episodes.
6 episodes.
A little heavy on the iron, but don't worry. You don't have to start calling me Iron Man.
Wasn't planning on it.
Oh, no. I would say, of all the Phil lines, this is the one that probably doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever.
You died. There's no way you can go through a trauma like that and not come out of it changed.
Interestingly enough, I think May herself would find herself in that situation. Remember in season 4? They have to shut her brain off to cure her of... I think one of the ghosts walks through her and she goes insane, so they have to like turn her brain off, technically kill her, and then she wakes up, so I died. And then she was so offended that she ended up getting killed by Radcliffe. Killed, quote unquote.
I was going to do it.
I know you were.
I had the anti-serum, the chute, everything. I just couldn't get the straps
Fitz,
on.
please.
And
again, they'll make it up to him. He'll get the chance to jump through a portal through the universe.
I mean, he's
to save her.
He's gonna get many, many chances.
Yeah.
So I love them. They're so I love this ship. Honestly, you kept bringing up Daisy's relationship, and I'm just like, I never cared about any of them. Like, not even with her and Susan, honestly.
Look at his face. Look at his face here. Look how it turns from a smile to a
worry.
It's him realizing, oh no, I think I like her.
Yeah.
Someone might decide to take this little dream team away from you.
I'd like to see them try.
That doesn't sound like the Phil Coulson I used to know.
This whole theme of like Coulson being different, and I think that's for the better. And it's empowering for him to reclaim that in a way.
Yeah, for sure. Also,
but looking back on it, though, I think I can understand that Coulson would feel that May was using this moment to make him feel empowered by it instead of leading him to, search for more answers. But go ahead, David.
I have trouble believing that someone could take away this team from him. Only just because, like, Fury gave him the team, It's kind of like, there's no way. I don't believe it. Or at least...
Yeah, and say, go ahead.
Or at the very least, the line, I like to see him try, is, like, legit. It's like, come on. Fury gave me this team, basically.
Well, before we get to our feelings, let's see what people wrote about this. This was, I believe, aired November 6, 2013. AV Club gave this episode a B. I think they're giving every episode a B. All right. Despite the unprecedented synergy on display in S.H.I.E.L.D., the show isn't revolutionary television. It's slick and fun, but also cliched and formulaic. This is written by Oliver Sava. Struggling to find a distinct voice and builds on concepts introduced in the Marvel Studios films while trying to appeal to the broadcast audience. Airing in the first slot of ABC's Tuesday primetime schedule with a tame TV PG rating, this is a series the entire family can watch. But when a show is dealing with a morally ambiguous international spy organization, you expect a bit more bite from the stories. Sure, it's early, and the show is still finding its footing, but with ratings continuing to drop each week, time is running out. He's not necessarily wrong about time running out. Inevitably, there was no going back from the audience dropping like a rock. He is correct. But again, this really just goes to show you the impatience that people had with things to get more serious. Which is funny because this was the most serious episode yet of the show, I would say. And so I think it was a preview of what would come later. But I think it also gives insight to what people wanted, right? I think Oliver right there was saying what he wanted. He wanted to see a show that was more violent, more graphic, but also more serious. Saying, you know, people thought because it was a ambiguous spy organization, he wanted something more cutthroat, which he would get in a few seasons. Not where it is right now. Right now, the characters are pretty witty ciphers. The plots lack a sense of urgency, and that doesn't seem to be anything that the series is building to. Man, you see, do you see this? Like, I mean, it was. I get that in the moment it didn't feel that way. It was building to something, but also there were stakes in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
There was a sense of urgency here, but evidently the people he didn't agree. There are mysteries of Agent Coulson's resurrection and the shadowy group working in opposition to S.H.I.E.L.D., but the former doesn't have a large enough impact on the entire group, and the latter lacks a strong villain for the audience to rally against. S.H.I.E.L.D. is currently focused on taking advantage of elements introduced in the Marvel films, yada yada yada. Part of the problem is that superheroes can be tough on a network television budget, but that's easily fixed by using characters with less fantastic superpowers. Okay. I enjoyed FZZT, yet I can't help but feel that this series could be so much more. Well, guess what? It would be at some point. The cast is getting more comfortable with each episode. The effects are some of the strongest on ABC, and there's a lot of potential for the writers to comment on the real-world political climate through the machinations of, well, they do, especially in Season 4. But like most of the procedurals in their formative stage, S.H.I.E.L.D. is stuck in a case of the weak rut, telling done in... Okay, this review is beginning to feel like a rant on like what the show isn't instead of what it is, which is what ultimately people were on about. So while all those are still fun, FZZT puts a twist on that last element as it reveals Fitz's crush on Skye, adding some variation. Okay, yeah, Fitz likes Skye, and there are moments where he feels a little like he's attracted to her, but it ain't that. The episode didn't treat it like a big thing, clearly. He continues, S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to switch up character pairings. And while Melinda is still saddled to Coulson, Skye and Ward are split up so that they can spend time with other teammates. Scenes like Fitz awkwardly flirting with Skye in the lab help to complement the dynamic in the bus and reveal new facets of the characters that haven't seen yet. I guess this person liked that moment a lot. While there are overarching plot problems, those can be forgiven if the characters are well developed. But S.H.I.E.L.D. is moving very slowly in that department. We rarely see what these characters are like when they're not in work mode. If they're not on the ground investigating, they're in the plane examining, flying to the next location for more investigating and examining. The scene where the agents played cards at the end of I Spy is one of my favorites of the series because it showed what these people are like when they're not in the middle of some sort of catastrophe. And at the start of this week's episode, we get more of that kind of energy when Fitz and Simmons poke fun at Ward behind his back. The X-Files influence is strong in FZZT, beginning with the creepy opening sequence where a group of Boy Scouts tell scary stories around the campfire before their troop leader is mysteriously killed and left hovering in the air. Once the agents get involved, the episode moves into less atmospheric territory, but the shadiness of Agent Blake makes me think of the X-Files Men in Black, people who worked for a similarly expansive government group with mysterious intentions. Okay, Whedon television shows are always an ensemble affairs, but okay. Despite my problems, I still look forward to watching this every week. Okay, not much out of this review, honestly. AV Club does this thing called Stray Observations. Other things that they noticed, David Sims wasn't able to join me tonight. He's the guy that I guess usually reviews the show at this point. Ben McCurry's musical score for this series has been very aggressive with telling the audience exactly how it should feel. But this episode's opening sequence shows the value in taking it down a notch and letting the action on screen determine the viewer's emotional response. Was this also a take that people thought that his music was over the top? What?
Nah.
Oh my God. People just don't know when something good comes at them, right? Like, Jesus, man. Although, he does say Melinda's interrogation technique. Have a cookie. I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Interesting. Let's move on to what Eric Goldman thought on IGN. In the 2 weeks since the last episode aired, I think I've read at least 4 different ways Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. could improve. Think pieces. And while I agree that the show certainly has room for improvement, I don't think the situation is nearly as dire as others seem to. This is a fun series that is working some notable kinks out. But the past couple of episodes have me hopeful we're on the right track. See, Eric always was on the right track with this show. I don't think I always agreed with what Eric said, but he always had great reviews. And I was so angry when IGN, I don't know if they let him go, but they stopped doing S.H.I.E.L.D. reviews. But Eric always did the reviews from 1 to 5. So pissed off. Anyway, that continued in Fizzed, which was a pretty focused episode and certainly the most emotional one yet. As far as the core cast is concerned, this show is still way too into evoking the Avengers when it can, and I was concerned when it turned out a Shatari helmet was key to the story. The show has to stop feeling so limited by continually returning to things established in the previous movies, rather than introducing more of its own elements. The Marvel Universe is so huge. Couldn't the virus here have come from something we haven't seen before? Thankfully, though, the MacGuffin that the Shatari helmet was used to launch a much more interesting storyline than this appeared to be at glance. No characters have needed more work than Fitz and Simmons. The joke of how similar they are gets old really fast, and when you have 6 main characters, it becomes more frustrating and annoying than endearing when 2 of them are barely defined clones of one another. So I was glad to see this episode work to fix that, building upon kernels established in earlier episodes, as we see that Simmons was the more adventurous and even more macabre of the duo, declaring things like, "So sad a man died this way, and yet so amazing," while Fitz did all he could to avoid dealing with the corpses around them. When the third of the first respondents from New York actually died, halfway through the episode, I was impressed. Coulson talking down a man on the verge of death is typically something we see at the end of an episode on most shows, and with the man being saved. The fact that there was literally nothing that could be done was a good twist on the norm. Simmons then contracting the alien virus took the episode into a whole other arena, as the story became about the team facing the possible death of one of their own. This is where the show's earlier issues hurt it, in that there hasn't been enough weight and depth between these people established to feel, say, Sky's pain at losing Simmons. If you felt that way, that's certainly fair. I will say, could there have been better ways to make us feel that way? Sure. I argue, though, and my feeling has always been, this is me coming away from the review and having my personal feelings on this. I'm sorry. I think it did enough. I think it did enough to show that these people actually care about each other. Mm-hmm. I mean, from the get-go, they're put in situations where they have to, but just honestly think about it. But I don't know what was in the air. I guess I'll say I get that you maybe didn't feel that way. I think the strength of those first 5 episodes definitely help with what happens in this one. But in and of itself, this was well done, and Elizabeth Henstridge was very good as Simmons came to accept her fate. I was surprised to find myself even partially affected. This is coming from somebody who didn't necessarily buy the depth that was already there. As Simmons told the team what to tell her parents, given I began the hour barely caring about the character. So in its own right, from Eric's perspective, that's pretty impressive. You can see the budget difference in S.H.I.E.L.D. versus a Marvel movie when you can directly compare a skydiving scene like the one here versus the one in Iron Man 3. And note the less stellar FX. But that's gonna come with the TV territory. And Ward leaping out of the plane to save her like he did was pretty damn cool, I must say. And yes, Fitz attempting to do so was sweet.
Mm-hmm.
The episode continued the darker tone of the last couple and was notably lower on the quip scale. This is a very good thing, as good a sense of humor is appreciated, but the first few S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes would often go too far in this arena. I get it. I don't agree, but okay. This episode was appropriately serious as the situation grew more serious for the crew. Meanwhile, Coulson's physical seemed to be hinting at him discovering the truth about himself as he confessed to May he fell off, which was first established, I think, in the last 2 episodes or the last 3 when he couldn't do the thing with the gun. However, she ended up seemingly stopping him on his track as she told him he was simply feeling the understandable trauma of someone who'd had a near-death experience. But since we know there is indeed more going on, hopefully Coulson realizes that again sooner than later, because this is not a mystery that needs to be drawn out all that long. Okay. The verdict. Fizzed didn't instantly change everything about these characters. They are still far less fully realized than three-dimensional than most Whedon shows are known for, even a few episodes in, but it took some important steps with the particularly problematic Fitz and Simmons, and has me even more optimistic than a few months from now. All of its super focused criticism of the show will have dissipated. That's him saying that in the next few months all of this stuff will go away if they continue being on this particular track. David, your thoughts on these thoughts as well. Interestingly enough, there was some positive stuff in there, but there was some drawbacks there for sure. People not necessarily being eager to forgive. I don't know. Your thoughts?
I really like this episode. I'm legit excited to watch the next one and everything. But also, I think this might be the best one for me, at least so far, just because you mentioned it. Like, everyone got like a really good acting moment in this episode, especially Simmons. And yeah, I think this is like the moment that where they were really coming together, not just like as a team, but like emotionally as a family, for sure. And so, yeah, this was fantastic.
Yeah, I really feel like this was the episode that changed the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the episode that made you realize I might like these people more than I think I do, and I might end up watching this show for a lot longer than I thought I would. Yeah. The strength of the performances, especially by Elizabeth Henstridge and Ian DeCastiger, and again, this is the beginning. There will be many more moments, emotional moments, feisty, fiery moments between the two. This might be, it proved a game changer. And I think that the cast and crew feel the same way about this episode as well, where it's like, we got something going here. This is the first episode where they actually realized they got something going on with Fitz and Simmons. And from this point forward to the end of the show, they had plenty of opportunities to show that. Any other things to say about this one?
No. Like I said, I'm legit excited for the next one.
Yes, for sure. Thank you all for watching. Please continue to comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you thought. Did we piss you off? Did we enlighten you with something else? Please put that all down below. I'm sure I pissed somebody off with my Joker take, even though that's not the main reason that we're here. If you think my Joker take will piss you off, just wait till you hear my Last Jedi take. Let's not even do that. Anyway, thank you all for watching and listening. We so appreciate you being here, and stay tuned next Friday for our next episode, which we're already going to be at episode 7. Are you kidding? Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, stay under our spotlight. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.